of course, I'll be recording this to post it on Edmodo so you guys could have it as a resource in case you struggled with PEMDAS, just to practice. So, number one, when you have a minus negative, what do? Change it to plus positive, right? So it's 5 plus 3, which is 8, and that's it. Number two, what's the answer there? 16? 4? 4? 16? 4? 16? 4? 16? 4? 16? How many people say 4? How many people say 16? All right. So how about this? In order to answer this correctly, we need to understand that right there says PEMDAS, right? We need to understand PEMDAS. So PEMDAS is the correct order of operations in math. So just to refresh your memory, P stands for what? Parentheses, or technically anything that groups things like parentheses, brackets, even absolute values, right? You always zoom in and do whatever you can on the inside. So if you have parentheses, zoom in and do whatever you can on the inside. E is what? Exponents, right? Now notice P is in red, E is white. Then we have M and D. What's M and D? Multiplication and division. Why are they both the same color? It doesn't matter which way, but you have to go from left to right. I mean, it's not that it doesn't matter which way, but they're worth the same, right? Multiplication is division, but it's just the inverse, right? So multiplication and division are both equally important. So whenever you're faced with both multiplication and division, you go from left to right, kind of like reading a sentence, all right? So that's the thing to remember, that you must go from left to right. So 40 divided by 5, that's 8. 8 times 2, that's 16. So the correct answer is 16. It's really easy to make the mistake and say that the answer is 4, because a lot of people think PEMDAS means, oh, the M comes before the D, I have to multiply before dividing. That's incorrect technically. Whenever you're faced with both multiplication and division, you must go from left to right, because they're both equally valued. Number 3, what's the answer there? 9? Negative 9. 9? Negative 9. Negative 9. It is negative 9. Okay? Now, check this out, guys. E, exponents, there's no parentheses, there is exponents, so we're going to do exponents. So we have 3 squared. We don't have negative 3 squared, we have 3 squared with a negative sign in front. Okay? There's a big difference between 3 and 4. That one has parentheses which include the negative sign. So that really is a negative 3. Okay, so on number 4, that's really the base, negative 3 times itself, negative 3 2 times. And that really does give you a positive 9. But if you're on number 3 up here, that's really just 3 squared, which is 3 times 3. And of course that negative is out here in front. So that's really a negative 3 times 3, which equals a negative 9. Little details. Easy mistakes that could be made. All right, number 5. Oh yeah, I apologize also. You guys have to write pretty small in order to get all this in there. Very common mistake that students make is this. They see the minus and they want to change it to plus plus. If you did that, you made a mistake. All right. The changing of a negative to a plus positive, that comes from the rule that a negative times a negative is a positive, right? But you don't multiply before exponents. You must do exponents before multiplying on PEMDAS, right? So we have the base negative 3 squared. So negative 3 times negative 3, we already know that that's positive 9. And of course we still have the 5 and we still have the minus sign. So we have 5 take away 9, which is what? Negative 4. Okay. Number 6, PEMDAS. Do we have parentheses? Yes. What does that mean? That we zoom in and just do that 4 take away 6. What's 4 take away 6? Negative 2. You have $4, you owe $6, you're going to owe $2. So we still have the parentheses, and let me zoom out a bit and rewrite everything. Math is always about, or all about, doing one step and rewriting, that way you don't make mistakes. We have the third power up here, we have the parentheses, the 2, the minus sign, and the 5 out there. So So now that we've done parentheses, even though the parentheses are still there, there's nothing to do on the inside. So now that we've done the parentheses, we move on to E, exponents, and that's really a negative 2 to the third power. What is negative 2 to the third power? Anybody? Negative 8, right? Negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Technically, I should have put them in parentheses. So negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Positive 4 times another negative 2 is negative 8. So what I really have here is 5 minus 2. I want to keep the parentheses times negative 8. Why am I keeping the parentheses? So I don't make the mistake of thinking it's subtraction. It's still multiplication right there. So after doing parentheses, then exponents, now we're going to go for multiplication, and then at the very end, we're going to do the subtraction. So let's go for multiplication. And you can call this a negative 2 times a negative 8 and getting a positive 16. Or you could say, you know what, I'm not going to mess with that minus sign. I'm just going to say 2 times negative 8. I would call it a negative 2. What do you guys want to do? Call it a negative 2? Or leave it as a minus 2? It's up to you. Negative 2. Okay, so if we call this a negative 2 times a negative 8, we're going to get what? Positive 16. Now notice I have to put the positive sign because it's going to actually be a plus sign, right? Because this was a subtraction. It was 5 take away 2, but I pretended that it was negative. Negative times negative is positive. I need that plus sign right there. So the 5 comes down. 5 plus 16 is 21. Final answer there. So, last one on the opener. What's final answer? Anybody?
2.
2? Okay, let's see how we got that. Whenever you have a fraction, it's kind of like doing 2 separate problems. Simplify the top, simplify the bottom, and then at the very end, worry about this division bar. So up on top, we have 2 operations. We have a plus sign and a multiplication sign, right? It's between the 2 and the parentheses. It's invisible. So we start with multiplication. So what is 2 times negative 6? 2 times negative 6? Negative 12. So we have 4 with a, or plus, if you want to call it, negative 12, or just 4 minus 12. Either way is fine. And 4 plus negative 12, that'll give you a negative 8 up on top. So that was the steps on simplifying the top. On the bottom, we do have multiplication, we have addition, and we have exponents. We're going to begin with exponents. 2 to the 4th, that is not 8. What is 2 to the 4th? 16, right? 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. So I really have a plus 16 back here instead of a 2 to the 4th. And over here in the front, we have a negative 2 times 10. What's that? Negative 20. Negative 20 plus 16 is negative 4. So what I really have in the denominator is a negative 4. So I have this problem, negative 8 on top over negative 4. Negative 8 divided by negative 4 equals positive 2. If you're thinking, man, that was hard, and that's not good. You guys need to practice a lot more on your own. All right, let's review solving equations. Another big detail. If you don't know how to solve equations, you're going to run into a wall in Algebra 2. Number 1, and let me just do a quick review to refresh your memory. It's all about the equality here, right? The equal sign means that there's balance on both sides. This equals this. If you think about it in terms of weight, they both weigh the same. And that brings you to the thought that whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other. The goal to solving any equation is to isolate the variable to get x by itself on one side, all right? So x is what's important. You want to get x by itself. There's a times 2 in front of it, and there's a plus 3 behind it. We got to get rid of both. Which one do we get rid of first? The plus 3, right? So you get rid of that plus 3 by doing the opposite, right? Which is minus 3. What you do to one side, you do to the other side. The 3's cancel. What do we have left? We have the 2x that comes down. The equal sign comes straight down. And 5 take away 3 is 2. So what we really have here is 2 times x. And you don't want that 2 times in front of the x. You want x all by itself. You want x equals. So we get rid of that 2 times by doing the opposite. Divide by 2 and divide by 2. And you will get x equals 2 divided by 2 is 1. Number 2. What do? All right. And what do I get? Negative 3x equals. Okay, and what do I do next? Divide by negative 3, right? Some students that are not good at solving equations, they would say, oh, plus 3 to get rid of this minus 3. That's incorrect. What's really happening between the negative 3 and the x, you're multiplying. To get rid of multiplication, you divide. So you divide by that same exact value. What you do to one side, do to the other. That cancels. X equals positive 7. Number 3. We want to get c by itself on the left side. It's not by itself. To get rid of things, you do the opposite. So we have a divided by 4 right here. I need to get rid of that divided by 4. What do? Multiply by 4, right? So times 4. And what you do to one side, you must do to the other side to maintain the balance, the equality. So the 4's cancel. You have a c minus 5 left over. The equal sign comes down, and 6 times 4 is 24. So to get rid of that minus 5, what do? Plus 5. Plus 5. We will have c equaling 29. Last one. Once again, we want g by itself, so what do I get rid of first? Subtract 6. So get rid of that 6 by doing the opposite. What you do to one side, you do to the other side. Rewrite what you have. 2/3 g equals 4. Now what does 2/3 actually mean? It means 2 divided by 3. If I don't want this fraction, if I don't want this divided by 3, I do the opposite, which is multiplying by 3. That'll cancel out. What I do to one side, I must do to the other. I'll have 2g equaling 12, which is really 2 times g equaling 12. So I would divide by 2 on both sides. G equals 6. I hope that you guys are all comfortable with solving equations and simplifying expressions, because that is absolutely necessary for what we're about to do on the next video, not on this one.